Okay, so we are continuing part 2 of the Freedom Riders, and in this photograph we have Mr. John Lewis, and on the left side is a young man named Charles Butler in a black jacket. John Lewis is in like this grayish color jacket, being arrested at the Birmingham terminal in Birmingham, Alabama, right when they came from Nashville to Birmingham to resume the Freedom Ride. And again, this was May 17th. So it was 7 men, 3 women who rode from Nashville to Birmingham to resume the Freedom Rides. But as I stated, they were stopped in Birmingham just before reaching Birmingham to prevent that beatdown that happened previously. The police just stopped them beforehand, escorted them to the Birmingham terminal, and then took all the Freedom Riders to jail. Now, Mr. John Lewis, he was about that life, baby. Let me just go on a little tangent. His whole Freedom Ride, he was and sit-ins, and like I stated, he was doing this before the Freedom Ride started. He did it in Tennessee with his friend, Mr. Lafayette. And John Lewis was arrested 45 times. 45 times. By racists who was beating his behind. Do you see his skull cracked right there? That was actually Mississippi, and then the one underneath that is him. You can't see it because it's small, but he's actually getting into a paddy wagon with that patch, medical patch on the back of his head from his skull being hit, bleeding from his head. The upper left corner is him being taken away from a bus boycott in Tennessee, and then the bottom left, I forgot which one that was. I believe that was in Jackson as well, but don't quote me on the bottom left one. But Mr. John Lewis said every single scar, every bruise was a badge of honor. Baby, he had heart. So after the Freedom Riders were arrested, they were eventually released, but then they had nowhere to go. And this is a photograph of the Freedom Riders, a white woman and a black woman and a black man, just sleeping in the Birmingham terminal because they didn't have a bus driver for several days. So then Robert Kennedy, he calls the Greyhound Company and he demanded they find a driver. And also the Department of Justice, Mr. John, and I may say this so wrong, Signathaler, accompanied the Freedom Riders, and he met with the Alabama governor, John Patterson, to expedite the bus departure for Montgomery with a full police escort. There was another picture of MLK. He came down and he was shaking the hand of a young man on the Greyhound in Birmingham as they were about to depart for Montgomery. Now, Montgomery had something wait for them. As the bus hit the Montgomery City line, state troopers left the bus and local police was supposed to be there to continue the order, but they never appeared. They never came. So the bus was unprotected when it entered the terminal, and several riders were beaten by a white mob. Again, I'm not showing that. A lot of people sustained injuries as well. When the police arrived, the riders had an injunction barring them from continuing the Freedom Ride in Alabama. MLK, he was in Chicago speaking, and he heard about what was going on. So he returned to Montgomery to hold a rally at Abernathy's First Baptist Church in Montgomery. So at the rally, and this is a picture of the church house, outside the church house and inside where people were shut in because of this rally, where MLK criticized the governor of Alabama, saying that he abides at a bed in forces of violence, and also calling for federal intervention. A white mob gathered outside. Of course they did. And from the church, MLK had to call Robert Kennedy to assure that federal government would protect the church. And that's who you see outside carrying these guns. Like, these people stayed in there all night until the next morning, until they had early morning, until the federal government showed up with protection. And Kennedy swiftly mobilized federal marshals who used tear gas on the white mob that was outside of the church. And the Alabama National Guard replaced federal marshals to escort people from the church. That's how crazy that is. Now, on May 29, 1961, the Kennedy administration announced that it had directed the ICC to ban segregation in all activities or facilities and its jurisdictions. But the bus rides, sorry, not boycotts technically, but the bus rides, interracial bus rides, continued to fight against segregation. And students from all over the country purchased tickets from from the North and the West to come to the South. And baby, they were not playing. They were overcrowding Mississippi jails. This is a mugshot of the Freedom Riders from all of it in Jackson, Mississippi, and they went to Parchment. Over 300 persons were arrested in Jackson, Mississippi, went to Parchment Prison where they were abused, beaten, threatened. So this is a group of Freedom Riders, again, interracial group, that were arrested in Jackson, and they're on their way to a farm, to do farm work in Hinds County, just for trying to integrate buses. And this is the picture of John Lewis being arrested, as I had showed earlier, but this is a clear picture of him getting on that paddy wagon for Jackson, Mississippi. Sorry, y'all, I have to laugh. I've been up since 2 a.m. And now I've known about the Freedom Riders for quite a while. Like I said, I'm a little history nerd, you may say. But what I did not know was that there were volunteers from Los Angeles. And this photograph here is a picture of students who wanted to integrate buses from Los Angeles to Houston. And once they made it to Houston, they were immediately arrested and sentenced to jail. It was 7 whites, 9 blacks. And yeah, 11 UCLA students were arrested in Houston. Oh, and this occurred in August. It kind of says that they're August 11th of 1961. Now, by November 1st, 1961, all that illegal activity that was going on finally stopped. And there was no need to continue the Freedom Rides because integration took place at all at all interstate bus stops and their facilities. So they did have an impact on changing what was going on in the South, and this also helped with moving the Civil Rights Act as well as the Voting Rights Act, especially since black and white people couldn't even travel together prior to this. But my point is, I just wanted to introduce everyone to the Freedom Riders. I didn't know it was nationwide per se. I thought it was mostly like the East Coast. I had no clue that California said, hey, we in here and we're doing our thing too, and we're going to integrate the South as well. Yeah, so that is the Freedom Riders. I don't know what I'll do tomorrow, but I will see you guys tomorrow with a new story. Bye now. And I know I said bye, but I had to show these 2 plaques. I've walked past both of these plaques. I've lived in Montgomery for 4 years, worked downtown for the state, and walked past the one on the right all the time, as well as the one on the left that's in, or I think I have it flipped. But one on the left is Montgomery, one on the right is Jackson. And when I tell you, I was like, oh, the Freedom Riders. Oh, the Freedom Riders. You know, it's just something in the back of my mind. But to see and to actually understand what happened in Mississippi, because, you know, Alabama, they arrest you, they let you go. They may beat you up, arrest you, and let you go. But Mississippi was trying to take your freedom, baby. Mississippi was trying to get you for free slave labor and beat you. Like, they still was up that slavery mentality. And so it's kind of funny, living in Alabama, they make jokes, but they were like, at least we ain't Mississippi. And it's in Mississippi, we made jokes and said, at least we're in Alabama. But let me tell you something. Mississippi was way more backwards than Alabama. Sorry, not sorry. And it's my home state. Now, bye. Now, I'll see you tomorrow. I'm going to bed.